So nothing is the same forever. Everything is a season. We have hills, we have valleys, and just encouraging people to go through those hills and valleys. Celebrate when you're on top of the hill. Reach out when you're in the valley.
Welcome to The Narratives of Suicide, the podcast where we bring hope, community, and a voice to those who've lost to suicide. It's where we dispel the myths of suicide. We dispel historical discourses and constructs that have been steeped in history for a very long time, and we're here with hope, love, and support for everyone out there who needs to listen to this podcast. I'm so sorry you're here, but I do hope it can give you something to use in your healing process, to be able to pick up the pieces of suicide and put them back together again in the best possible way that you can.
Welcome today. I'm really excited today. The Healing Narratives of Suicide have got an awesome guest from Oklahoma, OKC, apparently we say, for B, who's doing an amazing job on Instagram. I found B promoting discussions around suicide, promoting discussions around mental health. And I'm so really looking forward to this conversation because I think from what I can tell already of what I've seen of your Instagram account, you're just so presently aware of the effect it has on so many, but you bring such warmth, love, light, joy along with that. You know, and I think that's just a real important balance to have when we talk about such a deep, difficult subject, to bring in that light wherever we can. But it's going to be so interesting to hear how you've done that amongst all your own things that you've gone through. So welcome, B.
Thank you for having me.
Really pleased to see you here. So let's start with what you do, because I know you're ambassadors for this, that, and the other. So what's your joy in life? What brings you here?
So what brings me here? I am the giver of useful information. I inspire. So for me, I'm an author, I'm a public speaker, but most importantly, I always like to be remembered as a mental health advocate who is just on a mission to make sure that no one else is lost to suicide. And I do that by sharing my story, learning all I can, training all I can to share. And I do that in my books. I do that in speaking. I do that in mentoring. I even do it every day when I'm teaching, just sharing my story on how to live a life full of joy.
Oh, nice. So books, what books can we get hold of?
So the first time I told my story was in a book called Fabulous New Life. It was a volume 2. So it was a compilation of stories. And I was the very last story because I was really embarrassed, but I really wanted to tell my story. But I was really kind of nervous about how things would go because I was a professor at the time, how things would go once my truth came out. And man, being a part of that book it lit a fire under me. It lit a fire under what became Be Inspired. And so my first solo book was Be Inspired, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy. And in that book, I'm able to share my story. I'm able to share my recovery and just some practical steps on how to live a life full of joy, whether you're someone that's attempted suicide, whether you're someone that's just struggling with mental illness, or whether you're someone that's lost someone to suicide. So I just wanted to be a light, and I was able to do that in that 70-page book.
Awesome. Oh, it sounds great. Sounds great that so it sparked that in you, that first book, to spread.
It did. It sparked me.
Did the experience yourself spark that? Or was it the book that really said, I need to do this now, and now is the time? Or did the actual experience yourself of attempting suicide kind of make you go, actually, something's got to come of this?
The light was sparked when it was supposed to be dimmed. What was supposed to dim my light, it illuminated it, because in those moments of losing life, I realized how precious life was and the little things that we take for granted. And I made a promise to my creator. I was like, look, if you take me today, I know that I'm going to be with you. I said, but if you let me live, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to share my story because I found something so precious. You know, I thought everything was so bad, but in those moments, I saw life for how beautiful it is. And that was the spark, and everything else just came along. The books, the TV interviews, all that stuff was later. But the day that I woke up, that's the day the light was sparked. because I knew I had another chance.
Wow. So you went quite far then by the sounds of it. So you actually you said you woke up. So you woke up feeling, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I fought for my life and I made it and I embarked on a journey, and when I talk to youth, I tell them all the time, it doesn't stop here. I spent 40 days in a mental health facility. I always say it was the worst 40 days of my life, but it was the best 40 days of my life. I learned gratitude on a level like no other.
Gosh. Yeah, gratitude. I think one thing I've learned from all of my losses is just this real sense of gratitude for the smallest things, for my eyesight. But it's hard to get there when you're in grief. It's really hard to get there to that gratitude place.
Grief and emotions and depression, suffering from mental illness, and then just life. There was a lot of life things that brought me to that moment. And I guess how I was looking at it, so I look at it differently now. I process my emotions. I don't ignore them, but this time I process them and I grow through it.
Yes. Process them, grow through it.
Mm-hmm.
So in depression, in the period before, how long was that, by the way?
I looked at my journal and we're at 11 years.
Gosh.
So I wear a bracelet. It's says 1111 on it. And I thought that was like a little message. It is. It's a message from my mom. My mom passed away a few years ago. And when my sister passed away, I always would get 1111. I would get messages. And my sister was letting me know that on 11/11/0211 that my mother would go. And she did. And she passed away on 11/11/0211. And now we're looking at this year of my second chance. And it's 11 years. And I know people may not think much of numerology, but those numbers just fit together. So we're looking at 11 years, over a decade, to turn things around. And I'm grateful for every day. I'm thankful for every day.
God, 11 years ago. You must have been, I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to even try and guess, but you must have been reasonably.
Yeah, because I'll be 48 in April. I don't mind telling my age. I'll be 48 in April because I think this is important. I was 37 when everything, and so we're looking at almost 11 years come my next birthday. So I was 37 and just really battling things that I had been struggling with since a teen. When I went back to write my book, there were things that were there from the time I was 6 on, and you just pack these things in life. That's why I love being an advocate for mental health, because we've got to learn how to unpack what the things we can't carry everything. Some things we've got to unpack and just think a lifetime of packing things, a lifetime of disappointment, a lifetime of worthiness, a lifetime of wanting to belong. And I was just packing all that. And at one of the most successful times in my life, that was when I wanted to check out. I was tired. I had too much. I was carrying too much.
Yeah, it's like a suitcase, isn't it? But it just dampens down. You push it down. We have to push it down at that age. If it starts happening at that age, what else can we do with it? And the only way of coping sometimes is to push it down. But when we pack it down, it's got no room then, has it, to move, to grow, to change, to do exactly what you're saying, bring it up, explore it, allow it to go through, which is what you've learned since in those 40 days, maybe, and since in the 11 years, how to do that, because we're not taught how to do that.
No, we're not. And I think you're right. You make a good point. I don't think at any time we were taught, you know what? You've dealt with this. You've conquered this. Celebrate this. Nobody ever tells us that. And so I quietly just kind of tucked those things on the inside. And boy, when they came to the surface.
Yeah. Ouch. Sounds painful, but you talk about it with such joy.
It's on the inside because I'm free. I'm not shame anymore. I broke up with shame, so I'm not shame anymore. Shame doesn't control me. I know that I grow through what I go through. And then I realize that we all go through something. I always hear people say, you never know what people are going through, be kind. But I smile because I'm free. And I smile because whatever it is I'm dealing with, I know it's temporary. And I know that it's something I need to process. There's an action step I need to perform. And guess what? I'm alive to even go through it. So be grateful for that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Wow. Thank goodness you are to spread these messages, especially to the young who aren't understanding how to do that. Like I say, we're not taught. So it's learning that process, isn't it? If we have an emotion, whatever that might be, we observe it, we allow it to go through. Even though it's painful, we judge our emotions. Is this good? Is this bad? Do I want it? Do I not want it? We start judging it. That adds extra layers to it. We don't judge it. We just go, right, okay, I'm feeling this right now. We allow it to move through, noticing our body. But then the important part then is the celebration at the end. Dance around your kitchen, ring a friend, scream and shout, do something at the end to celebrate yourself processing that difficult emotion and being with it while it was there.
I love that. Respecting it. I don't think we have enough respect for human emotions. They're given to us for a reason. And honoring those emotions and dealing with them. That's how we pack light. That's how we keep our bags from overflowing, because after a while, you can't close that bag. It won't close. And so that's the point I got to. My bag wouldn't close. I was carrying too much and not enough gratitude. So yeah, I like that. You said, process it, honor those emotions because they're there for a reason.
Yeah. Telling you something, they're communicating with you something. Yeah.
Because, my mom used to always say, our bodies heal ourselves. We would get hurt and she'd break off a stick of aloe vera. She's always just doing a little weird natural stuff. I'm like, what in the world? Just give me some Tylenol. And it's like, no, our bodies have a way of healing ourselves. Go to sleep, drink some water. And, and I'd be like, okay, I get it now. I didn't get it then. And when it comes to our mental health, our emotions, those are our healers. Those are the things, the tears, they cleanse us. The anger lets us know, hey, something's wrong here. Fear lets us know, hey, there's something wrong here. What is it that I need to be looking for? What is it that I need to deal with? I mean, those emotions are there for a reason. Those are healthy triggers. And so looking at them differently. And
that's about perception, which you mentioned before. When we perceive things a certain way, that's when it adds layers of the extra discomfort from having emotion in the first place. If we perceive that as, I don't want this emotion, I don't want this feeling, that's when we don't process it and we add the extra layer and we fuse with it. We say in sort of therapy, we fuse with that emotion. So you fuse with it like you're fusing like two electric cords together. You're giving it energy then at that point rather than just allowing it to go through. And the point is to diffuse from it. Just go, oh, okay, it's there, and diffuse, allow it to have energy almost to move with a more relaxed energy.
I like that. That is crazy. And to think that something that's uncomfortable, we actually fuse with it and it becomes a part of us.
Yeah, we give it energy. We give it energy, like negative energy, which add layers on top, which we don't need. We've got enough as it is. We don't need to add any extra layers with our perception. But all this is easier said than done. We know, I know. Been there.
It's a process. That's why I wrote a book. I said practical steps. This is a process and it's an ongoing process. It's something that we'll do for the rest of our lives. It's just like exercise and taking care of our bodies. I'm a runner and I look at all the people there in their 80s and their 90s and they're out there and they're still out there walking or running, or your body still requires maintenance to operate at its best level. And so your mental health, that's a workout you're never going to be able to take a break from. Because if you do, I promise you, life will deal with you.
Yeah. It'll show up anyway. Show up. Yeah, sure. Let's talk a bit about then, because I'm aware this podcast is for suicide loss survivors. It's for those people left behind. Let's talk a bit about maybe anything that would help them from your understanding now.
And for those left behind, when it comes to suicide, it always appears that those left behind are the ones left holding the bag. So, we're talking about this bag, right? They're holding this bag. And so had I died, my family would have been left holding the bag. Wonder what would have been in that bag. Probably a little shame, a lot of fear, a lot of questions. And so for those left behind, what I hear most on my journey is, what could I have done differently? Could I have said something? Could I have stopped them? Could I have changed something? And, the thing that I share with people is I go back and I share my experience. When I was fighting for my life, I saw so many things because in the middle of my depression, I thought no one cares about me. No one loves me. No one's there for me, because that's what depression tells you, because that's depression's job, is total unworthiness. And I think about the fact that I had made up in my mind that this was not where I wanted to be anymore. And I like to tell people, once they've made up their mind, it's pretty much it. And there are some things that we know we can do if we're in an instance with someone. We could ask them, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about taking your life? You could do those things, but there's really nothing you can do besides love people, be present as you can be. I think we forget to be present, but there's really not much you can do besides just maintain those healthy relationships with people. Because once I made up my mind, I had made up my mind. And even in those moments, it was me that had to decide that life was something that I wanted to do. And even in those moments, I wasn't blaming anybody. When I was in the middle of my depression, it was everybody's fault. Everyone's fault. Dog wasn't acting right. Man wasn't acting right. Mama didn't love me. This. But when it came to recovery, that was all about me. And it's an internal thing. And I think the ones left behind, they pick up the bag. And it's so unhealthy. They pick up the bag and they try to carry it because there's so many unanswered questions. And I think the best way to deal with that is to understand that you can't control other people. You can only control your reaction. And I remember the people that I saw in those moments, and it was the people that loved me unconditionally. Mm-hmm. It was the people that even when I was in the midst of my depression, they were still my friend. They still made time to listen to me. And even with all of that, it still didn't stop my plan.
Yeah.
Hey, let that guilt and that shame go. We do what we can for people, but our journeys are our journey. And that was my bag. It wasn't my bag to leave with my family, but I do believe that when someone dies by suicide, the ones left behind hold that bag. And so what I would say is to find support like what you give and answers, because there'll never be concrete answers. I still don't always understand how I ended up where I was. I know that it was a journey, and I know that there were things going on, and I know that it was mental illness. And to think that I wasn't even in my right mind. Right. I wasn't even in my right mind. I was so convoluted with life and lack of gratitude. And I'm not ashamed to say it, lack of gratitude, because, we look at celebrities and they go, oh my God, I've done a couple of celebrity stories on TMZ, and the backstory with the producers, like, they give you all these lists of everything the person's done. It's like, how could they want to do that? But if you don't have that internal love, that self-love, you don't know how to unpack. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how many fans you have. It doesn't matter where you live, how old you are. If we're not able to unpack and we don't have a support system, then it can happen to any of us.
I love this analogy of the bag.
Yeah.
If we can't unpack again, we pass that on.
And then a bag. Because stuff that happened to me didn't happen to my family. So just think my family's left holding this bag. They don't know. It's just a bunch of stuff. It's a bunch of trauma. It's a bunch of pain. And yes, I did have family issues, but who doesn't? Tell me where the perfect family is.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Tell me where the perfect friend is. We're all dealing with something. And to those left behind, I say, all we can do is just love one another and be there for one another, and to find a community to help us heal so that we can grieve properly, because that's still a loss. I just see a lot of people always wonder what they could do. And that's why I love people. People wonder about my personality. It's like, I'm this way because I don't know if I'll see you again. I don't know if this is the last time we'll interact. And so I just live my best life every single day and treat others how I want to be treated, say things that I need to say. I give gifts to my friends all the time. I sent a friend a song the other day. They're going through something. Now, do I know exactly everything they're going through? But I let them know, hey, you know what? I care. Hey, I found this song you should listen to, or I'm praying for you, or I'm thinking about you. And sometimes that's all we can do.
God, there's a lot there. Well, everything you've been speaking, and there's so much there. I'm thinking of the impact it can have on this bag analogy, because all the time it's just, I'm carrying the bag. It's like, I call it a baton. It's like my brother passed the baton on to me and he's like, there you go, sis. And I'm like, okay, thanks. What do I do with that now that you're not here to tell me? Do you know what I mean? Because you're my brother. You're supposed to tell me what to do with this thing. And then I've just developed a connection with him internally. My spiritual belief system is that he can still tell me, and I have little chats with him, if you like. And whether they're true or not, I don't care. They mean a lot to me. And they help me to process what I do with this baton. But I've heard it in all sorts of contexts, the bag, the wheelbarrow of shit, excuse my language, but just this constant dumping of everything. And if we look at that in psychology terms, with Freudian terms, with psychoanalysis, it's like there's a lot of projection, a lot of introjection, a lot of all these sort of different terms that brings up our defenses as suicide loss survivors of just, what do I do with this now, this bag? And to hear what you just said, it's not your bag that was you to carry with your incident. That was my bag. And I owned it when you were in it. Although the depression was saying, nobody loves me, nobody loves me. And that's a big thing for suicide loss survivors. We want them to know they're loved more than anything, to know that they were loved. But you said something really crucial. That was the depression story, saying that I wasn't loved. It wasn't reality.
I wish I could have felt it. It wasn't reality. The Benidria that would have died that day is not the Benidria that you're looking at. Like, I was just totally clouded and couldn't even tell you the moment, that everything just clicked, and it just clicked. And I believe that we all have an appointed time. And so I like your baton analogy, because for those that have left, those that have gone on before us, it was time for them to pass the baton. And us that are still here, we carry it to the next. So you may have a baton, but I feel like I have a light, and I carry that light, and I give that light to someone else. And my light that I carry is hope, because I didn't have any hope in my bag. I have no joy in my bag. And so I carry on that hope to other people and say, there is life after. There is life after. Keep living. We're going to go through, but keep living. And I love to share that with the youth. Keep living. I know you're young and feeling like you're never going to get where you want to go, but if you keep living, this won't last forever. This pain is temporary, and it won't last forever. It won't always be like this. And depression tells you it's always going to be like this, but we know that nothing is forever. Everything is temporary. Everything, even the seasons. Oklahoma, we got like 4 seasons in one day. We don't even get to have winter all day. We get winter, get fall, we get spring. I've worn shorts this week, pants this week, a coat this week, a jacket this week, and back to shorts again. So nothing is the same forever. Everything is a season. We have hills, we have valleys, and just encouraging people to go through those hills and valleys. Celebrate when you're on top of the hill. Reach out when you're in the valley.
Nice. Yeah. That speaks a lot to grief, that does, because again, it feels like it's going to last forever.
God, when my mom passed, I really sat in the house. When my mom crossed over, I said, life's never going to be the same. And in some points, that is true. Life will never be the same. I no longer have her in the physical, but I'm learning to enjoy our new relationship. And like you said, your family member passed on that baton, and you have that new relationship, that spiritual relationship with my sister and my mom. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's better than the one we have when we're in the natural, but I think it's rooted in gratitude. So when I get those messages from her, when I get those memories of her, or something funny happens, or my niece does something that just totally looks like her mom, and I get those memories, I'm grateful for them. And no, life will never be the same because I can't touch them, but life is better because they were in my life. And so I celebrate them. I remember one year I was falling back into depression because my sister was gone, and I didn't want to celebrate her birthday. I didn't want to do anything. And I don't want to do anything. Her kids' fathers were calling, and I just didn't want to do it. And I went to therapy, and my therapist is my counselor. And she was like, well, did you love your sister? And I was like, yeah, I love my sister with all my heart. Then why not celebrate what she meant to you? Why not honor her life? And I was like, oh, so me sitting here just wallowing in pity and sitting in my pain and not remembering the good times. She says, how will you remember her? How will you honor her? And so I do that by honoring her life, not how she died or when she died. I think about her life. I think about the experiences that we had together more than weighing on the things that we didn't have together. And with her daughter now, it's kind of crazy because those things I thought I'd do with my sister, I do with her daughter now. And I just look at it differently.
Yeah. And did you find that there was a time when the therapist could say that, but when she couldn't have done? If she just said that like maybe 6 months before, it would have maybe gone, ooh, too soon. Because I think there's a period when there's just too much.
It was just too much. And I think that's where you have to process that person is gone. And for me, those 6 months was, ooh, everything that I thought I had. We always have this thing of thinking we have time. I don't know where that quote comes from. I know Kobe Bryant says the biggest mistake. Imagine who that quote came from. The biggest mistake that we can make is thinking that we always have time. And our relationship wasn't the best, but I always figured we grow up and mature. We be old ladies fighting over mama's blue china. And so it allowed me not to put the work into that relationship because I took for granted that we'd have time instead of loving that person right there in that moment, fighting it out, working through those disagreements, just thinking time would just, it'll settle itself. No, it won't. We are responsible for our relationships. We are responsible for how we treat one another. We are responsible to do the work. And so that 6 months was like forgiving myself and really owning the fact that I didn't do the work. There you go. So like, it's like, I think when people pass, we're like, we have that guilt when they leave. We have that guilt that there's something that we could have did. Just deal with, hey, we're human, we're flawed. And I had to deal with the fact that I didn't do that work. And I had to say, hey, this is not how it's going to be. This is how it is. And appreciate the good times that we did have.
How did you do that? Because that's a really big one for us with suicide loss. Big.
I remember I had a speaking engagement, maybe like she died on the 28th of September. I had a speaking engagement like on the 18th. And oh my God, I remember the coordinator, because they do these things like a year in advance. And I remember them calling me and saying, are you good? Are you good? Are you going to be able to do this? And I'm like, I don't have a choice but to do this, because life goes on and life moves on. And I know that probably sounds a little callous, but life moves on. And that day I found so much strength in her not being able to walk. I said, today I walk for both of us. Mm-hmm. I get up on this stage for both of us. Mm-hmm. And I look in the audience and my niece and her cousin, they're down there. And it's just like tears just streaming down. It's just like, oh my God. If I would have just wallowed in my pain, if I would have just wallowed in my hurt and been like, why me? There was a chance for me to give light and hope to someone else.
Yeah.
And man, it only made me feel better. I know it made her feel better. And then I was there for the people that bought tickets to actually, hear me speak. There was a message and somebody in there needed to hear it, because I know there was a day I needed a message. And I thank God for the people who are unafraid to share their pain, unafraid to share their journey, unafraid to share their mistakes, because that helps us as humans move forward. And I think we just need to give ourselves grace.
Grace and space. I say that so much. We need to give ourselves grace and space to be whatever is there right now. And I think that wallowing word's tricky for me, wallow in it, because I'm like, that sounds judgmental to me if you're wallowing in something. But then maybe we need to kick up the arse at that point. I don't know. Maybe you need that sort of kick to say to yourself, stop wallowing in it. Come on, you can do this. Maybe that helps. But I watch out for that word. It's like quite, can we change it to something more like, that's where you are right now, but maybe you need something to motivate, support, help you to be able to come out of that pit.
But do you ever feel like, since we're having a conversation, do you ever feel like sometimes you need to sit in Sorrow Valley and kind of process? Mm-hmm. Just don't stay there.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I felt like I needed to be there because that's what made me realize. And then I was like, okay, I've dealt with it. No, what now? What now? Do I stay here? And it's a horrible place to stay because it just don't feel good. It doesn't feel good in your belly. Life is, you're just kind of walking through it. And so it's like, if you don't deal with it, you're walking around with this big old bag. And so I had to start lightening that bag, and lightening it took a lot of grace, a lot of honesty. And when I really thought about it, we had moments. We had a moment at my granddad's funeral where I don't know where the memory came back. I just grabbed her and I was like, you know what? I was like, you're my sister. And there is nothing in this world that you could do that will keep you from being my sister. And I remember I grabbed her and I hugged her. And, we had a moment. But when I was in my grief, I didn't remember that moment for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It fogs. It's that grief fog kind of idea that just your body, especially with shock, when you're not expecting it, the shock of the grief fog of the trauma of it just cuts out those memories. It just stops cognitively, can't go there. And that's part of the grief, part of the whole process you've got to go through until you can start to let in those memories. And again, it's sitting in those moments of grief, processing them and allowing them to be there as long as they need to be until you're able to bring in, without any judgment, why am I not bringing in nice thoughts? I can hear people probably listening to this thinking, I can't bring in the nice thoughts. Don't judge yourself for not being able to bring in the nice thoughts. Just accept that the nice memories will come back once you've maybe processed, healed the trauma, done what you need to get through that period.
Do you think so? I think so too. I think I had to get some stuff out the bag. So I don't think we've got to pass it. We've got to get rid of it. And I don't know. It's just...
Yeah. So your suicide attempt actually helped you to even just see your bag, didn't it? I think, from what I can tell, it's almost like you got, you woke up and went, God, this bag's big, it's like, it's nearly taken my life, now what do I do with this bag?
It did. It almost took me out of here. And it was stuff that happened when I was like 6. I mean, it was like, okay, B, are you going to deal with this or are you going to let this go? Either tell that person about themselves or let it go. And some things I was just holding on to and things that I misunderstood. A lot of times in communications, we assume what people are thinking. We assume what people are feeling. But without having that communication, I had to deal with some stuff. I had to forgive some stuff. it was a lot of work for me because before I got there, I was blaming everybody else. And I was like, dang it, I had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of work to do to define myself. And I look at people differently and I look at experiences differently. But grief is something else. It will grieving relationships and, grieving what could have been, grieving the mistakes, even when it came time to tell my story, I was concerned about, just shame. There's a lot of different things to process there. But I knew that if I didn't share, someone would end up just like me. And I think about what I needed at that time. And I was like, I'm going to be what I wanted. I'm going to be what I didn't have. And I'm going to share and not be afraid. And look, over this last 11 years, how recovery and mental health and grief and suicide prevention and all the efforts, they're just growing and we're building communities to help people now. And I look at that now and I'm like, wow. I mean, I know we're not where we want to be, but man, we're so much farther than we were.
Yeah, I hear that as well, because this prevention narrative can be difficult for us to hear,
It is. I'll say suicide is preventable. And I think when we start to look at it that way, we believe that cancer is preventable. Someone has stage 4 cancer. You're like, you can beat this. You got this. Someone suffering from mental illness. Why can't we have the same hope? Why can't we have the same fight? Why can't we have the same sense of urgency to come to the aid of people that just need a little hope, that need some direction, that need some support? Why not?
It's an interesting concept for suicide prevention. It makes me feel like, that brings on more guilt, more shame, more I couldn't prevent my suicide. So we've got to be careful with that narrative in society. But I know it's got to happen. Suicide is a behaviour. And that's why it's preventable, because it's something that comes as a product of something else.
Yes.
Last resort, it's taking out the last resort you've got to make the solution. And we can't, when we see it like that, then behaviour can be changed, made better. There's the hope there for that behaviour to be changeable. But we've got to be careful we don't use that narrative too much around us who couldn't prevent it. And I like what you said earlier, that actually those that have lost their life to suicide, that was the end of their journey. And that was what they needed to do for their life. And I'm guessing your faith helped with that.
Yeah, because I think about Yaya, who would have been 18, and I know her family misses her. But when I think about everything that her family has done to advocate and help young people, I'm like, she is still here. Her light is still shining. And like every video you'll see of her is just this big smile and it's just joy. And they're taking that pain and, oh my God, they're helping the masses. And I'm thinking, wow, who knew that in that short life, we don't get to determine what someone's journey was. We don't. I think we don't have control over that, but what a beautiful journey.
So tell us who Yaya was, just because other people.
So Yaya is a little young lady that lived here in Oklahoma City that died by suicide. And she recently would have had, I think it's been over 5 years, she would have had her 18th birthday a couple of days ago. And I feel like she's I tell her family all the time, she's like my little spirit animal. She reminds me of myself when I was 13 and dealing with the awkwardness of growing up and just all the different problems that we have. And her life, at first her family was really, really quiet. And now they've become some of the biggest advocates. And then I watch her family come together and every year they remember her, every birthday they celebrate her. Every birthday, they make sure that they talk about her life, honor her life, and help people seek solutions and support. And so I feel like she's with me all the time. She smiles a lot. She smiled a lot.
Yeah, you talk a lot about continuing bonds. You're continuing the bond with her, aren't you? They're continuing their bond with her in a different way.
I'm about to cry because her aunt saw my post on Facebook. And she was like, I just love you, B. And I'm like, I can't make this up. I was like, maybe she just passed me the baton. Like, hey, my journey's ended, but B, you're still here. Ya's gone, but B's still here. Keep sharing. Don't let people forget me. I was here. My life mattered. And it still matters to so many people. To use her as an example, because a lot of times in communities that I go into to talk about grief, especially in a school when someone's died by suicide, we often see not too soon later, there's another one in the school. So getting grief counselors in the school to make sure that those subsequent suicide attempts and suicides do not happen. Because I'm telling you, it's like a reach one, teach one kind of thing. And I don't know. I wish I had the perfect way to put it, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's a journey. And like you said, it's a baton, and our journey is our journey. And I still believe, had I died that day, that was the end of my journey, and I would accept it as such. But I look at all the beautiful places and people and experiences that I've had and things that I've learned along the way. And I'm like, thank you for this journey. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. Even those moments, even those really difficult moments.
It might be difficult for my kids to hear, but I wouldn't change a thing because it's made me the best mom. It's made me the best friend. It's made me the best human. It's given me courage. And I believe I speak for those who no longer can speak. And I also speak for those who suffer in silence, to be honest about their journey. Some days it hurts. Some days I'm angry. Some days I'm sad, but I always come back to joy.
Oof. Thank you for speaking for them, for speaking for those who can't.
Welcome. To people listening, it's like I can feel the emotion and the questions and the why and the...
Yeah, it's really hard when you're in your place of you really want to help. You really want to do all you can. And for us caring people that really want to do all we can, that can be really difficult because with suicide grief, sometimes you can't do anything to take away that pain. And that's but you can be there.
I think about Dr. Jeff, Dr. Jeff was such a big part of my journey. And this is like packing bags. He was my business law teacher when I was going for my master's, and he was my business law teacher. And when I decided to change careers, I didn't have any teaching experience. And I remember walking into this college. I walk into Brown Mackie College. I'm like, I want to teach. And turns around, it's Jeff. He is now the president of the college. And I think about our journey. He goes, well, you don't have any experience, but you've done a little training. And he knew me from school. He said, you were always such a hardworking student. He said, you know what? I'm going to give you one class to teach that you're qualified to teach with your business experience and degrees. And he said, we'll see where it goes from there. Jeff opened the door for me to enter education. And I've been in education since 2012. And when he died by suicide and I spoke at his funeral, I was just like, wow, you just never know what someone is going through. You just don't, because I tell you, every time I saw him, it was a smile, and he was always making it a point to be a light for someone else. And like I told you earlier, I feel like you said, suicide is a behavior. The pain, like someone that has cancer, they may say they're in physical pain. They just want to be free. So depression for me, it was a pain and I wanted to go away. And so that behavior, you feel like that's something that's going to make the pain go away and just to be free. And I know that Jeff is free, but man, I sure do miss him. I thank him for, and I honor him for what he's done, because it's 2021 and I'm still flourishing for the opportunity that he gave me.
Gosh.
And I can't forget him,
What is that? What are you doing now? Is it American Foundation for Suicide Prevention ambassador, are you?
Yeah. So I'm on the board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I do our media relations, and I'm also on the board for a crisis chat hotline, the Kristen Brooks Hope Center. I love them. It's called I'm Alive. And so we provide training to people. They can call the crisis chat line, 1-800-SUICIDE. Working with them helps me honor people like Jeff and helps me continue to honor Yaya's life, to process the fact that I miss them, but to honor the fact that we're saving lives and we're helping others get to a place of joy and get help when they need it. That stuff didn't exist 20 years ago. And, I love the serving part of it because it keeps me alive.
For sure. Purpose is a big part of my research findings, is purpose. When we can find our purpose, if we're drawn to find a purpose, it can be really triggering. It can be really painful experiencing that, speaking to other people. I can imagine being on the board, hearing stories, be painful, but we observe it. We allow it to go through, and that's part of the healing. The purpose of, but not everybody will be drawn to healing, to purpose, to be purposeful. And there's got to be a right time for it. Again, everyone's journey is so unique. And when you feel your purpose, you may never feel it. You may feel it at different times. If you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And that's okay.
If you're not feeling it, you're probably just not on the right track. It will come. I believe we all have a purpose. We all do. I always wondered if mosquitoes had a purpose, besides being annoying. There's a purpose to everything. Every living thing has a purpose. We may not always understand what it is, but man, to those of us that can find it, there were so many things I wanted to do and be, and to know that almost losing my life will help me find my purpose.
Yeah. So how can people get hold of you if they want to get hold of you? What can they apart from Instagram?
Okay, so on my website, www.bsmith.live, B-E-E, like the bumblebee, bsmith.live. You can find me there. That's connected to my Instagram. But my Instagram is Be Inspired Talk. Twitter, Be Inspired Talk. Facebook, Be Inspired Talk, or Be Smith Live. You can find me both ways. There's a Dr. Benidria Smith page on Facebook. That one's bsmith.live, Be Smith Live, and the other one is Be Inspired Talk.
Brilliant. And are you open for people contacting you?
You found me on Instagram, so you found me on Be Inspired Talk. I love the community that is building.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have met you.
Yeah, it's so good we can start to give voice to this shame. Brené Brown said one of the ingredients to shame is silence. What turns sometimes guilt to shame.
Yeah.
We can have guilt. I did that wrong. I was wrong there. I should have done something differently. I learned from my lessons rather than just learning from the experience of feeling you've done something out of order. When you add the silence into it, that's when it can become shame. And that's one vital ingredient for it. And your Be Inspired talk. Yeah, dissipates that shame. The whole lesson can dissipate that shame. So it's finding the right person.
See, I'm telling you, because I didn't want to talk. So it's funny that it's Be Inspired Talk. Because at the time when people were speaking and traveling, everybody's word was, she speaks, Tom speaks, da-da-da speaks. And then God gives me Be Inspired Talk. And I know where the talk came from, because in group therapy, I watched people get their healing from talking. And the first day I went to group therapy, everybody's talking about stuff and talking about what happened to them. And I'm like, there is no way I'm going to sit in here with a room full of strangers and tell them all my business. And man, after the first time I talked about it, I was like, no wonder they're talking about it. Did it make the problem go away? No. Did it change what happened to them? No. But it sure does help you grow through what you go through. Mm-hmm. And that's why they were talking. And I was like, here's the key. Talk about it. Silence the stigma, but increase that conversation. Have the conversation. Silence the stigma. Because you're right. You said it earlier. There's a stigma attached to it, and that needs to go. We need to talk about it.
Yeah, which we're doing now. Thank you so much for being here to do it and to offer space to that conversation in such a hopeful, joyous way. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and being here to offer your perspective. And thank you for everything you're doing for everybody. It really means a lot.
No, thank you for what you do. It means a lot. Connections, that's what it's all about. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for having me. I just pray that this conversation is a blessing and a light to someone. Our message is not for everyone, but it's for someone. And hopefully I've said something that will help someone on their journey.
I'm sure. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us here today. I hope it served you and given you something for your journey with suicide. Come back and subscribe, like, do whatever you need to do on your platform to help us to raise awareness of suicide, because the more we keep saying the word, the more we can gain support for us left behind, and the more we can raise awareness of the word and how society sees it and reduce this stigma that's so attached to it. Please get in touch. You can find me on my website, suicidegriefsupport.com. I really want to hear from you. But for now, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And remember, we are stronger together.